Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to wish you all a very happy Women's Day. Today, we have Miss Simran Nahata with us. She is a microbiologist and founder of one of the India's leading gut health brand called Truly Health. I would request Simran ji to just start with her session today. It will be going to be a very enlightening session for all of us. So, Simran ji, over to you.
Yeah, I'm having
Yeah,
trouble sharing my screen.
no problem, Simran. You can take your time. I'll also request Shikha to put in her opening remarks. And as the chief mentor of the firm, I gladly and very respectfully welcome the guests also who have joined us today, and all my partners, colleagues, and the bright young minds who are working with us. Thank you so much for joining in. And a very, very happy Women's Day. The men don't feel left out because we're all cohesive, we're all interdependent, and we love to be interdependent. So it's all together that we grow in the society. I must introduce you to Ankita and Shikha. They are the partners of Mamta Binani and Associates. And today we have Simran Nahata, as Ankita rightly pointed out. She is a founder of Truly Health. She's doing very well. And I must tell you that I have heard her session once before, and I was truly overwhelmed and very happy to see the content of what she spoke upon. So it's not being a microbiologist where we, of course, we got attracted by that, but we also got attracted by the content and by the meaningful deliberations that I had encountered in one of the meetings. So there we requested Simran to also do this session for us on the special day, which is the Women's Day. So thank you, Simran.
Pleasure is
Our partners are also very diligent about their health, and especially Shikha has always been very health conscious, and therefore Ankita also mentioned that it will be very apt if that's Shikha Rai from, she has the Pune branch of the MBA. So I'll request Shikha to put in her opening remarks. Shikha,
Shikha,
please
take your
unmute. Shikha, please unmute
Hi,
it.
am I audible now?
Yes, please, very good.
First of all, happy Women's Day to each and everybody. And what I understand here, we have Rohit also, Mohit also. So, women's are always incomplete without men. If you can spell women, men is included. So, happy Women's Day to all of you as well. This topic, I am so into uh, gut health. I'm so into good, healthy lifestyle. So, I'm very interested going ahead with this session. Yeah, what I believe that there's a saying that invest in your gut, it will automatically invest in your health. So fueling your gut will directly help you to fueling your body. uh, I think I'm looking forward for Simranji, and she will help us and guide us through in this coming 1 hour, that how we are going to glow differently as a professional. I believe that you will give your 100% if your body will support you 100%, and everything start and ends with the gut. So over to you, Deep. I think, yeah, over to you, Simranji. Please.
Yes, yes. I
Yeah.
think she's figuring it out. Yeah.
Yeah, I am going to be sharing my screen now. I finally got the access. Let me know once it's visible.
Yes, it is visible.
It is. It is.
Okay, super. So good morning, everyone, and of course, a very happy International Women's Day. I see that a lot of women have been able to join us, and I'm glad to see the participation. And I'm also very, very thankful to Mrs. Mamta Binani for giving me the opportunity to talk to you about gut health. As I'm sure all of you all have experienced, gut is such an integral part of our body. And nowadays, every system, every organ in your body is actually related to your gut. It originates in your gut. So to be able to talk to you about it and help you understand the basics so that you can make a science first decision into unlocking your wellness is another privilege, and I'm very grateful for it. Uh, what we're going to do is we're going to start with a little game. It's about myth or a fact. I'm going to show you a sentence on the screen, and you can tell me whether you think it's a myth or you think it's a fact. And then we will break it down and see if you're right or wrong, right? So I would encourage you all to be on your chat screens, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to monitor that as well. So the first, sorry, yeah. So let's see how well you know your body, right? So the first sentence for today is 50, sorry, 1 second, let me just, yeah. 50% of the serotonin is the happy hormone. 50% of it is made in your gut. Do you all think this is a myth or do you all think it is a fact? I see that the answers are coming in. Well, my bad. I mean, I've posted the answer already on the screen. So this is actually a myth, and this is a good news because it's not 50%, it's 90 to 95% of serotonin is actually produced in the gut. You know, for a long time, scientists thought that serotonin makes you happy, which is a mood regulator, and it should be formed in the brain. But that's not true. It's actually produced in the gut, and only 5 to 10% is produced in the brain. So, this is a good news for us. So, the next time you feel happy after you've eaten a good meal, after you've eaten a nutritious meal, you know that you have to thank your gut for it. So, moving on to the next one. Dairy and fruits make a healthy breakfast. This is quite common, and I'm excited to see what you all have to say. Dairy and fruits make a healthy breakfast. Well, I see that my audience is very educated themselves, so I'm glad because you all are right. It is a myth. So, fruits have all kinds of different acids. You have citric acid, you have malic acid, and dairy products in general contain lactic acid and they don't sit well together. You know, we have age-old traditions where we are making something like amras, for example, with mango and milk, and we make all kinds of smoothies where we put in a lot of different fruits with dairy products. It is not a good idea. What these acids do when they mix up is that they eat up your gut lining. And once your gut lining is eaten up, you will have toxins seep into your bloodstream through your gut lining and they will start accumulating under your skin. So it is not a good idea to eat dairy and fruits because they do not make for a good breakfast. So very happy to see that you all got this right. Next one is lack of sleep leads to weight gain. Let me see what you all have to say for this. Lack of sleep leads to weight gain. Okay, I see some mixed, mostly fact. Some of y'all are saying myth. And the people who are saying fact, I hope y'all are getting your 7 to 8 hours of sleep because if y'all know this, y'all know that it is true that lack of sleep does lead to weight gain. But what happens is when you don't sleep well in time or on time and you're sleeping less than 7 to 8 hours, for example, your circadian rhythm is going to go out of balance, because of which the bad bacteria in your gut will cause a weight gain. So this is true, and we will talk about the effect of sleep on your gut health. But this in turn is a fact. And this is the last myth or fact for today. So go to your chat and let me know whether you think juice cleanses are healthy. Guys, y'all think juice cleanses are healthy? Okay, mixed responses. Completely mixed responses. Well, to burst a few bubbles, I would say that this is a complete myth. A lot of people, when they're trying to lose weight, they go on a juice cleanse, they go on an all liquid diet, and they think that they will magically lose weight, and it happens. I mean, you do end up losing some form of weight, which you will ultimately gain back. Why does this happen is because it is an unsustainable way to lose weight, because not only are they unnecessary, they're also harmful to your body. Juice cleanses do not have the nutrients that your body requires, and it is basically concentrated sugar and you're throwing all the fiber away. So juice cleanses is not a good idea. Eat whole fruits if you want to eat fruits at all. But just going on a juice cleanse will not help you in any form or fashion, but it will also destroy your body because of the sugar concentration. So these questions are basically things that people generally believe to be true or not true. And it's very important to understand some age-old practices from the lens of science. So I hope that this was helpful. What we're going to do now, we're going to deal with all questions at the end. I have given in some time for questions that I will take from you all. But before we get on to that, what are we going to cover today? As my role as an educator, as a microbiologist, I hope to be able to tell you what the basics of gut health are and why should you even care about it. I mean, if it's a function that's happening in your body, it's automatically happening. Why should you care? Then what are we doing wrong when it comes to gut health? And because we're doing certain things incorrectly, what is that going to lead to? And once I've scared you all enough in terms of what the consequences are, I will also come to you with solutions as to how we can fix this. Then we're also going to discuss a very hot topic in the realm of gut health, which is the gut-brain axis. Then we're also going to touch upon the weight loss puzzle because I'm sure a lot of people, especially now, especially women who are close to their menopausal years, late 40s, early 50s, also have this issue with weight gain. Then I would like to tell you a little bit about what I am working on, and then I will open the floor for questions. Okay? So, moving on, the first thing is what I want to tell you is what is your gut and why is it important? So, when I ask a lot of people about what your gut is, people think your gut is your stomach and they will point to their midsection saying that, oh, my gut is here. But that couldn't be farther from the truth. That's only incomplete truth because your gut starts from your mouth, it goes down your esophagus, down your stomach, your large intestine, small intestine, and ultimately ends with your anus or your rectum. That entire canal is basically your gut. And what does your gut do? Very simply put, the food that you take in will be broken down. The broken down food, the nutrients from it will be absorbed, and whatever you don't need, it will be excreted out. This entire process is the process we call digestion, and this is conducted by your gut. Now, everyone knows that digestion, your gut plays a role in digestion, but there are a few more very important facets of bodily functions that your gut performs that you might not be aware of. For example, 70% of your immune cells are actually present in your gut. They are trained in your gut. So your immune cells, how do they know that they need to attack a foreign particle when it enters your body so that you don't face diseases? This training is basically done in your gut. So it's very important for your gut to be in good shape, in good balance, so that this training happens properly. Next is mood and mental health. Like we saw in the first myth, right? 90 to 95% of serotonin is produced in the gut. And it's not just serotonin, many neurotransmitters that make you feel good, that make you feel happy, that make you feel energetic are actually produced in your gut. So it's very important to take care of your gut, and a healthy gut can help you improve your mood swings, reduce symptoms of anxiety, of depression. And there is a lot of promising research that has been happening in this domain. So now, when I say that your gut is doing all of these functions, what in your gut is actually working? So your gut is basically home to trillions of microorganisms. And by microorganisms, I mean bacteria, fungi, viruses. And whenever I say these words, people will scrunch up their noses. They'll think I'm talking about germs and whatnot. But that's not true. Your body has so many good bacteria. For every human cell that you have 9 bacterial cells. So all of y'all on this planet are more bacteria than you are human. And that should be a very, very humbling sentence. At least it was to me. To understand that 90% of your body is actually composed of bacterial cells puts things into perspective, because now you should think about how you can feed them so that your body can function in the best way possible. And there are 10,000 times more microbes in the body, in your body, than humans on this planet. That is a crazy statistic. And these trillion microorganisms are basically the tiny workers who help in all of these processes that I've just spoken about. The digestion process that you see, the training of the immune cells is carried out by them. A lot of them actually produce nutrients as well. Some vitamin B and K nutrients are also prepared and produced by these microorganisms. Your mood and mental health, and also your metabolism, which is another very interesting intersection, because your microbes, the tiny microorganisms in your body, will determine whether you're a healthy functioning adult or whether you're an obese adult. So all of these functions are basically carried out by these microorganisms, and there is a very delicate balance between the good and the bad bacteria inside your body. And when the balance goes off, that's when
फोन कर दो मैंने
Sorry? Yeah, that's when you know that you have to change things over, when the balance is out. So what are we actually doing that is disrupting this balance? Okay, the balance that I'm talking about between the good and bad bacteria. Now, these are the most common things that we are doing, and I'm sure all of us have done this at some point or the other. The one that tops my list is taking medications, especially antibiotics. Now, antibiotics are like bomb blasts, okay? They do not care whether it's a good bacteria or bad bacteria. They will make sure that all bacteria are basically eliminated. And when that happens, your balance goes off. So a lot of people also face antibiotic induced diarrhea because there is no good bacteria to regulate the food that you're eating in. So these medications only need to be taken in cases when it's completely, absolutely necessary for them to be taken. Stress, another thing which in this particular lifestyle people are experiencing more and more of. Stress increases the level of this hormone called cortisol. I'm not going to be name dropping too many times, but some names are very important for you to know, and cortisol is one of them. Cortisol is a stress hormone which, when it goes increasingly high, your gut becomes more permeable to toxins. Now, what do I mean by that? Is you will have unnecessary, unwanted particles leak from your gut and going to different parts of your body. Now, I'm sure that doesn't sound like something that you want to happen, right? So, stress again is something that can completely disrupt the balance between good and bad bacteria. Number three is poor diet. Not only you, not only me, even the bad bacteria in your body, they love the pizzas, the burgers, the pasta, the fries, everything. They thrive on it. And when you eat all of these highly processed foods, you're actually helping the bad bacteria grow in number and overtake the good bacteria, which actually want your fibrous foods, your fruits, your vegetables. So there is a complete disbalance that you create when you are choosing to eat these highly processed foods over and over again. The fourth one is, I'm sure, is a no-brainer. Alcohol consumption again kills all the good bacteria. And smoking in general, basically, it hampers with the contraction of your gut. So a lot of the times it may cause constipation or complete reverse of it. I'm sure you know people who need to smoke so that they can poop. This is because your body is actually, the natural mechanism of your body is being tampered with because the balance is off. And the fifth one is my favorite one because it's so common that lack of sleep can actually disrupt the balance. Again, like I said, because your circadian rhythm will go out of balance. So when that happens, your bad bacteria will grow. And there are a lot of hormonal changes that will also happen because of which the balance can be disrupted. So all of these cause gut issues. And what are these gut issues? What are the diseases that will be a consequence of all of these habits that we have? Now, all of us know digestive disorders, right? When I tell you gut health, the first thing that you'll tell me, oh, constipation, acidity, diarrhea, bloating, gas, all of this is something that we already know. So the digestive disorder part, we're all very aware of. But there are certain other things that we don't necessarily relate to gut health, but they are a direct consequence of it. For example, metabolic diseases. India, as you know, is a diabetes capital, right? So obesity, type 2 diabetes, fatty liver, all of this is also because your food is not being broken down properly and digested by your body. As a result of which, maybe excess energy is stored around different parts of your body, especially around your organs, which is known as the visceral fat. So when you all complain about stubborn belly fat, it is basically because your body is not breaking down the food properly. Then you also have type 2 diabetes. When you're not digesting your food properly, then it also causes inflammation and fatty liver. Allergies. A lot of people are allergic to soy, besan, nuts. Why does that happen? It's because the training of the immune system. Remember, we spoke a couple slides back that your immune system is trained in the gut. When the immune system does not know that this is my body's particle and this is a foreign particle, they will start attacking your body's particle, which is why you get autoimmune diseases like allergies. Another one, which is very common, is your skin diseases. Like I said, if the gut lining is weak, then your toxins will get released into your gut and it'll get accumulated under your skin, which can lead to skin diseases like eczema, psoriasis, etc. And the one which has the most research coming up right now is your mental health. A good gut ensures a good mental health. And a lot of people going through depression, going through anxiety, they can alleviate some of the symptoms if they take their gut health into consideration. So these are the diseases. These are just a few. we are standing at that point in our century when almost everything can be tied back to our gut, which is, and I'm only saying this so that you can stress upon how important it is to look at gut health, especially now, especially with the lifestyles, especially with the sleeping and stress habits that we have right now. Now, I'm sure I've scared you all enough, but I also come bearing good news. So the balance that has been broken, which causes all of these host of diseases, how can we restore it? And there is a lot that we can do to restore this balance. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to bog you down with a lot of science. What I want you to do and what I want you to get out of this session is some really easy to implement tips that you can start from today. Small changes that will not require you to completely change your lifestyle, but small things that you can do so that you see an improvement and so that you know that you're headed in the right direction. The first one is control medicine consumption. Something that I have seen in during COVID and even after is the moment you feel a little feverish and you feel like, oh, I'm going to get a fever, people will just pop a Dolo like it's a candy, right? What that does is it completely interferes with the microorganisms in your gut. And what you need to understand is that fever is not a bad thing. Your fever, when you get a fever, it's your body's natural mechanism to fight the foreign particles, to fight the viruses that have entered your body. So let your body do its thing. The fever is not a bad thing. Of course, if you have more than 102 fever and it persists for a long duration of time, go ahead and take the medicine, don't suffer, but that should not be the first thing you do the moment you feel lethargic, the moment you feel feverish. You need to control your medicine consumption. The next is lowering stress levels. In this day and age, I'm sure all of us are going through a lot of stress. And stress, of course, is not good for us because of the cortisol that I had mentioned. Stress also makes you hold on to more fat. So that is something that we need to ensure that it is going down. And I'm talking about long-term, sustained stress. And one particular tip that I have for you to do, and what you can do is anytime during the day, whenever you have time, what I do is I have these post-its on my wall that I see and I remember. But I take this physiological sigh, which is a short inhale and a very long exhale. Try doing that 2 to 3 times, and I can guarantee you that you will be in a better position stress-wise than you were before you did that. So lowering stress levels is again extremely important. And this is the tip that I think you all should definitely try out. The next one is optimizing sleep quality. Now, I'm sure you all have heard that, you need 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and I'm not sure how many of y'all are getting it, but this is another area where research has only been done on men. Women actually need more number of hours as compared to men. So sleeping, not just the duration, even the quality of sleep needs to be optimized. Even if you're sleeping for 8 hours, but it's disturbed sleep, it's light sleep, your body will not recover the way it should, the way it is intended to recover while you're asleep. So one tip that I have that is rooted in science is if you're sleeping in a room which is 1 to 2 degrees cooler, it helps with the quality of sleep. So if you can set the temperature in a way that can admit for this, then I think that it will lead to a better quality of sleep, and it's something you should focus on. The next tip is focusing on your diet. Of course, everyone knows that you need to eat healthy, but the tip I have for you over here is just to change the order in which you eat. No drastic changes. I'm not asking you to go on a diet. What I'm asking you to do is just see what you eat first. So the correct order that you should eat in is start with the fiber, which is your fruits and vegetables, then go on to your fats and proteins. Your fats would be your oils and nuts, and protein would be your dal and tofu and paneer and all of that. And then do your carbs and sugars, which is your chapatis and rice and whatnot. Just following this particular order, research says can lower your blood glucose level by 75%. Now, this is very, very powerful. This also makes you feel fuller for a longer duration of time. So you will not go and grab your snacks box 1 hour after eating your food. So making sure that you're not just eating the food, not just eating the right food, but you're eating your food right. You're eating it in the right order so that you make the most out of it. The next one is moving your body. And of course, everyone knows that you need to stay active, you need to either exercise or do something. But my tip for you today would be to take post-meal walks. Just 10 minutes, just 20 minutes. But once you've eaten a meal, don't sit down immediately. Walk. I'm not asking you to power walk. I'm not asking you to jog. Just walk, just stroll. And I know that you all are doing your morning walks and you all are going to the gym or you're doing yoga or Zumba or whatever. But the beauty of a post meal walk is very underrated. And people who are trying to lose weight, this particular tip helped me lose 2 kgs during the COVID just because I used to walk every single time after a meal just for 10 minutes. So it's a very, very powerful tool that I definitely think you should practice. The next one is probiotic supplements, and this is where I come in, and I will let you know. I would love to tell you more about how you can make the most out of probiotic supplements. But before I do that, let me tell you what probiotics and prebiotics are, okay? Probiotics are the good bacteria, the bacteria that I have been fangirling over for the last 20 minutes or so. Probiotics are these live microorganisms that when you put into your body, they in the right quantity, in the right format, you will get health benefits. These can be bacteria that because of your lifestyle you've eliminated completely or you don't have enough of. These are probably bacteria that can fight off some of the bad bacteria that gets introduced because of your lifestyle. So probiotics are nothing but these good bacteria that can be put into your body. And there are a lot of fermented foods. You have yogurt, you have chas, you have kimchi. I'm sure you also recognize Yakult, which was a probiotic drink. Kombucha has come up. There are a lot of different supplements in the market. This one's mine. You have a lot of supplements that basically give you probiotics, the good bacteria. And the most common species are called Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium. And so if these are probiotics, what are prebiotics? Prebiotics are nothing but the food for your probiotics. So even your bacteria need to eat food, right? To be able to perform the duties, to perform all the functions it does for you so that you're a well-functioning adult. So prebiotics are the food to fuel the probiotics, and nature has her own prebiotics, right? I'm sure a lot of us ate almonds when we woke up this morning. There are a lot of dietary fibers like banana, whole wheat grain, cabbage, garlic. So many people are asking you to increase your fiber intake. Why? Because they're the food for these good bacteria that help you thrive. So these are basically pro and prebiotics, and this is something which is a supplementation that you might not get enough of from natural foods. So you might have to look at supplements, clean, science-backed supplements to be able to help you in your day-to-day life, right? So this is how you can restore the balance and you can ensure that your good bacteria numbers are bigger and higher than your bad bacteria numbers. Now, coming to another very interesting topic is your gut-brain axis. Now, how many of y'all have experienced some butterflies in your stomach, right? Probably before like a presentation or before a date or before some important event in our life, we have felt some butterflies in our stomach, right? And this is just not make-believe. This is actually true because what happens when you're stressed is that your gut sends signals to your brain and your brain reacts in a way which releases hormones in your gut, and that hormone release causes the fluttery feeling. So your gut and brain are actually best friends. They continuously keep chatting, and your gut is also called your second brain. Why is that? That's because your gut firstly is tremendously complex. It has 100 million neurons, and your gut doesn't need the brain to regulate the process of digestion. Your gut is self-sufficient. Every other action that you take, if you want to move your hand or if you want to blink your eye, you need your brain for that. But for the process of digestion, your gut is brilliant. Your gut can handle everything by itself. And the second reason why it's called the second brain is because your gut and brain are connected via a nerve called the vagus nerve, and they are continuously chatting all day. And it sends signals to the brain in turn will send signals to the gut. You know how in Bollywood movies, whenever someone's like broken up, they will instantly go and grab a tub of ice cream. Why is that? Because when you're in a state of emotional distress, your gut will send signals to your brain craving some sugary fat food. Why? Because that will release dopamine. Dopamine is another feel good hormone. So your gut tells your brain that I need more dopamine, I need to feel better. So you instantly go and start eating something sweet, eating something that will give you like immediate release of dopamine. I'll give you another example. How many of you have felt, and maybe let me know in the chats below, how many of you have felt that after you eat lunch, for example, you're extremely drowsy. You feel sleepy after you've eaten a nice bowl of dal chawal, and you don't want to get work done, and it's just drowsy, and you just might as well go to your room and sleep, right? It has happened too many times. It's happened with me. This is because once you've eaten, your gut is basically digesting the food. And for your gut to digest the food, it requires blood, which comes from different parts of your body, including your brain. So your brain feels drowsy when the blood moves from the brain to the gut for the process of digestion. So all of these examples are just to prove to you that your gut and brain are connected. What happens in one area affects the other area. So you cannot neglect your gut or your brain when you're talking about either. So it's very important for you to focus if you're someone who has a lot of mood swings, if you're someone who has problem with their diet in terms of you don't feel like eating or you feel like eating too much, there is a connection and this is something that you need to look into, right? Moving on, this is by far one of the most asked questions that I get from a lot of different users, from a lot of different customers. And their number one sentence is, Simran, I'm a healthy eater, my diet is clean, and I exercise as well. I go for my morning walks and I do Zumba. Why am I still not losing weight? And my problem with this is just the lack of education. We are still living in a world where we believe that weight loss is 70% diet, 30% exercise. No one talks about the other facets of weight loss. If you're not sleeping on time, there are two hormones, okay? One hormone is responsible for when you feel hungry. And there's another hormone which tells you that after you've eaten, okay, you are full. Now, when you don't sleep on time, these hormones will also go off balance. So next day, when you wake up, you will not know when you are hungry, and even after you've eaten you will not feel satisfied with the food. A lot of people feel like eating repeatedly. They've eaten lunch and then 1 hour after that they'd want to snack on something else. Why? It's because your gut hasn't told your brain that the gut is full. Now, it's time for you to stop eating. You're satiated, you're satisfied with the food that you eat. So unless and until you have good quality sleep, the connection between your gut and brain will be broken. Another thing, which is stress. Now, when you're stressed, now this is very interesting, and I would like you to pay some attention because stress is very interesting. Everyone tells you to like stress less, but they don't tell you why should you stress less. Okay, what is the reason and how is stress related to weight loss? Now, understand when our ancestors were stressed, they were stressed why? They were stressed because maybe they don't get to eat food today, or maybe they will be in a situation where food will not be in proper quantity. As a result of this, your body will store onto your energy reserves, okay? It will accumulate fat in your body so that when tomorrow you don't have food, your body can take in from the reserve that it has already stored. But in our current life, in our day-to-day privileged lifestyles that we're leading, there is no shortage as such, right? So our body is only storing the food when we are stressed and it's not utilizing them, correct? So that is why we need to ensure that we're not in a state of stress all the time. The second thing that happens when we are stressed is blood moves away from our digestive system to our muscles. Again, when our ancestors were stressed, it could have been a stress because their survival was in threat, right? So they might have to move, they might have to run. So blood flows from the digestive system to different parts of their body. But in our case, when we are stressed, we don't have to have that. And because our blood moves away from our digestive system, the process of digestion is weakened and we end up storing more fat. So just looking at diet and just looking at exercise will not help if your sleep cycle is not correct and if you're not de-stressing yourself enough. And of course, the largest part of the puzzle is your gut. Even if you're eating the right food, if your body is not using the food, if you are not absorbing the nutrients from the good, expensive food that you're eating, what is the point, right? You need to ensure that your body is making the most out of the food that you're eating. It is breaking it down, your metabolism is good, and you're not storing any reserves around any organs in your body. So your gut plays a major role in all of this and you cannot ignore it, right? So this is actually a a more holistic, it is obviously not exhaustive, but it is a more holistic view of how you should look at weight loss. Not just your diet, not just your exercise. Those two are also incredibly important. I'm not taking away from the importance of those two things. Your diet dictates a lot. What you put into your body is affected by your diet, and how you're using it, how you're burning it is determined by your exercise. But without all the pieces of the puzzle fitting into place, you won't see sustainable results. You might start a keto diet, you might start intermittent fasting. If you do not do it for a longer period of time, if you don't sustain it, your results will just get reversed. Okay, a lot of people do all of these viral trends, viral diets on the internet. You will go low carb, you will go no fat, you'll go keto. But if you're not targeting every aspect of your body, every aspect of your lifestyle, the results are not going to stick. So you need to ensure that, and it's not, I'm just making it sound like it's a lot of work, but it really is not. Like, you just need to know, need to be aware, and take decisions in the right step for you to be able to achieve this. So it is not a lot from a day-to-day lifestyle perspective, right? Now, I would like to spend the last few minutes talking to you about what I am currently doing, and how probably I could help you out in case this is something that you're interested in. So, my brand is called Truly Health, and we are a nutraceutical startup, and we sell concern specific pre and probiotic supplements. What do I mean by that? Certain strains of bacteria perform certain functions, okay? No one bacteria can do everything. There is no one size fits all approach when it comes to probiotics. So there are specific areas, problem areas that we look at, and we look at which bacteria is clinically backed to show results in that particular area. And we formulate our products, and we're selling pan India. And there are specific problems that we target. There are digestive disorders, weight management, women's vaginal and hormonal health, and we very recently launched our own line of vegan plant protein. And this is actually something like my products are something that I give my friends and family, my grandparents, all of them to use as well. So maintaining a high standard, a high quality standard, is of utmost importance. So this is why we focus on clean, clinically tested ingredients. You will never find emulsifiers or acidity regulators or anything artificial in any of our products, because these are products that I consume, my parents consume on a day-to-day basis. So that we can consume it every day without it having any adverse effects on our body, we need to ensure that we're using high quality ingredients and clinically tested ingredients, so that we can make the most out of it. And it is formulated with a board of nutritionists, so that we understand the exact pain points of our customers. For example, for weight management, a lot of my users have thyroid issues, they have high cholesterol, they have high blood pressure. So to make sure that our products can, help with catering to that sector of clientele as well, is when we bring the research in. So we take our R&D very seriously, because we want to ensure that we're giving products that actually have results. So just to give you a little idea of what these products are. So this is the digestive comfort, this is for weight management, and this is for women's intimate care. And this is our range of vegan plant protein. Plant protein in general, I mean, we could have a completely different seminar just talking about protein. We can talk about how, because we're so, as a country, we have a vegetarian diet, most of us, and we still believe that, our dals and our paneer can make up for the protein gap in our diet. But it is not true. Individually, also, I have a food first approach. I think that if something can be solved with food, it should be. Whole foods are much better. But unfortunately, we're living in a time where the amount of, say, for example, the amount of vitamin C that your grandmom got with one orange, you will have to eat six oranges to get that same effect. So we're living in a time when the nutrition value of even whole foods have diminished by a lot. There is a lot of milawat that's happening. There is a lot of antibiotics that are being infused into dairy products. So So shying away from supplements is not always a good idea. A lot of us view supplements as artificial things that I will have to put into my body. But sometimes for longevity, for you to ensure that your muscles are stronger, for you to ensure that you're aging well and you're not paying your hospital bills at the age of 40, you need to look into what kind of supplements. Of course, the supplements need to be really good. They need to be very well researched. They need to have third-party testing done. Look at good supplements and incorporate that into your diet only after you have a healthy lifestyle. Understand that supplements can only supplement a good lifestyle. If you're having burgers and pizzas and cold drinks and you're expecting that supplements will help you achieve your ideal body, it's not going to happen. So you need to ensure that you're eating your food right, you're moving your body, and whatever gaps there are in your diet, you're using the right supplement to fulfill those gaps. That is the agenda of a healthy and a sustainable lifestyle. And of course, we sell on our website, we have our platforms, and we also have a social media account where we do an education first approach. We want to educate people in terms of what is the science behind some habits that you should form. We're currently doing this series where we're doing 30 things you need to know to lose weight the right way, where we tell people science-backed tips. Okay, if you're trying to lose weight, this is what you should do. You should chew your food slowly so that more of it gets digested, so that you're not
मैम
metabolic
ने मेरे को यही
improving,
सिखाया, मेरे को वो भेजा।
right? So this is where you can find us, and we hope to be able to help you. If there are any queries, concerns, of course, feel free to drop us a message. But yeah, I think that is the information. I don't want to give you any more information because you won't be able to take anything back. I want you to remember the tips. I want you to remember the basics that you have learned today. And I would be more than happy to take any questions that you all have. And I would, before I take the questions, I would really like to thank you for being such a wonderful audience. I kept talking; it was like a monologue, and I can't see you all either. But I'm quite grateful that you all took out the time to just learn more about your body and improve your lifestyle. So you've already taken your first step, and it's time for you to take the next. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take that.
So I have multiple questions, but if somebody else is having one question, please go ahead with that.
Sure.
Simran, there are a few questions in the chat box.
Yes. Let me. Can you read them out? I'll stop sharing. Yeah.
Hi, I can go first. So
Yeah.
I think it was an incredible session, very insightful. Thanks, Simran, for doing this. There was a point when you, of course, talked about that, how juice cleansers are not very, it's a myth that it really cleanses your gut. But then how about the cold press one? We do have certain fiber content in it. Does that help, or that's equally bad for us?
So honestly, why I think juices are bad just in general is because of the concentration of sugar. And when you look at cold pressed juices, they are made from a very marketing point of view. They need to make the juices really palatable so that people like the taste. They need to make it sweet so that you get a little addicted to it and you keep coming back to it. So the point of the sugar concentration, even if it's a cold pressed juice, does not go away. I mean, if it's better than, it's the cold pressed juice is only good because the shelf life of the juices have increased and because the process with which the juice has been made is typically better. But in terms of the advantages that you can get from, say, an entire orange when you're eating the fiber versus a cold pressed orange juice, there definitely is a difference. So you are way better off having the entire orange rather than a cold pressed juice.
Thanks so much. I think that really is very, very insightful response because that's my go-to thing to do. But
Yeah.
here on, I think I should make this change. Thank you so
No, but
much.
if that is something that you do instead of having a cold drink, then yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah,
lesser of the two evils. So
it's a
if,
better alternative in
yeah,
comparison to a lot, but then it can still get better off than you. Perfect. Sure. Thank you.
thank you for your question. Does anyone else want to go?
I too have a question. Can I go?
Yes, please.
Thanks for the beautiful chat. It was really, really helpful. I think I do have to make certain changes in my lifestyle. Health, thank you for guiding it. I just want to know that if you have sweet cravings and you want to have them, uh, can we have it with our meals rather than having it separately? Does that make it better? Like, not better in the sense of consuming sweets, but if we really have to, is there a difference between having it with the meal and just sweet desserts on their own?
That is a wonderful question, and a question that is very personal to me, because I, as a person, want to end every meal with something sweet. And the first thing that I would say is cravings, especially for sugar, comes because the bad bacteria in your gut craves sugar. So that is number one. But I do understand that sometimes the sugar cravings just go out of hand and you want to eat something sweet. And you've answered your own question, because it makes all the difference. When you want to eat something sweet, when you want to eat a dessert, have that at the end, completely at the end. Why? Because when you're eating your fiber first, when you're eating your protein and fats first, they're actually lining your gut. So when you eat the sugar, the effect, the time that it takes for the sugar to enter your blood will be higher, because all of the previous food that you've eaten will act as bouncers for your gut. So they won't let the sugar enter immediately. As opposed to if you're having sugar the first thing before a meal or any time when you've not layered your gut, it will very easily go into your bloodstream. It will cause a sugar high and then a sugar crash, which is not something that you want, right? So if you must, definitely, if you have to have sweets every once in a while, I think it's okay. We only live once, I guess. But if you have to have something, definitely make sure that you're eating it after you've put in something into your body. Hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there any other questions?
Yeah. So I need to ask, is hormonal acne is connected to gut health? If yes, what are the do's and don'ts?
Yes, so that is again a very good one. So hormonal acne is connected to gut health. Even normal acne is connected to gut health. Like I said, just like your brain and your gut are related, your gut is actually your skin inside out, if that helps put things into perspective. Whenever there is an inflammation in the gut, it will show up on your face. It will show up in different parts of your body as rashes. Like I said, the gut lining is very thin. It is only one cell thick, your gut lining. So whenever your gut lining is loose or it is inflamed, you will see toxins seep into your bloodstream and cause all of these acne, all of these inflammations on your skin as rashes or what have you, right? Hormonal acne is different because there are certain strains of bacteria that actually help or promote the production of certain hormones, okay? So when people go through PCOS, for example, when the level of certain hormones are high and the levels of certain hormones are low, we see that because of this, certain bacteria and certain gut microbiome is not able to thrive. Because of this, the hormone production that is required for a clear skin, that is required for maintaining the skin barrier, that gets affected. So we need to ensure that our gut barrier is proper so that the hormonal implications is not stronger than your gut barrier. So there are things that you can definitely do. Is the simplest thing that I've started doing is, of course, include a probiotic. Probiotics are great. Make sure that you include some form of cold plunges. It can be dipping your face in an ice water, or even if you're if you are in a habit of having hot water showers, make sure you end it with a cold shower, because that regulate the body temperature regulation is also closely tied to your hormonal regulation. So you need to ensure that you're doing that. And just in general, one thing that goes a long way, and it ties back to the previous question that I got, is controlling sweets. Sugar causes the maximum amount of inflammation. It is the food that bad bacteria absolutely love. So if you can reduce the amount of sugar, your hormonal fluctuations will go down, your bad bacteria will go down, and your skin quality, skin barrier will become better.
So what is your say on dairy products? Will they affect hormonal acne or gut health? Because as of now, most of us are vegetarians, right?
Correct.
So we end up having our protein from either soy or dairy. And when we go to any doctor, gynecologist, skin specialist, dermatologist, they ask us to, cut down the dairy product, soy product. Then how to get the proteins, how to balance our protein requirement?
Yeah, that is actually, you've asked a question that everyone should be asking. Is protein right now has become so important, from keeping your muscles intact to even helping you lose weight to even maintaining the elasticity of your skin. Collagen is a protein, right? So protein has become increasingly important, and a lot of people have only told me, oh, my parents and my grandparents never used to have these protein supplements. Why should I? We always drank milk and had paneer and everything and had dal and everything was fine. My only point is the dairy that your grandparents used to drink was probably from a cow that they used to breed themselves, right? Or the sources where they actually knew where the cow or the source of the milk was. But nowadays the dairy that we are getting are from mass produced cows that have probably been injected with antibiotics because the big corporations require more yield and because they require more money. You are just not sure of where the source is coming from. So a lot of people might have different reactions to it. When people ask me, oh, should I continue dairy, should I leave dairy, I think it depends from a person to person basis. A lot of us are now becoming more and more lactose intolerant, right? And even as adults, our requirement and the amount of calcium and protein that we extract from milk is going down. So it is a time when I say that you have to look into other modes that can give you protein and not just depend on dairy. Of course, dairy has a wonderful nutritional profile. If it suits your body, if it allows you, if it doesn't lead to inflammation, there is no harm in continuing it. But it cannot be your primary source of protein. It cannot be your primary source of all the nutrients. You can't just drink a glass of protein and think that you've had a balanced diet, right? So you need to look at other places, other avenues to consume protein. Sometimes, and most of us, our vegetarian diet will not suffice. You will have to look at supplements, clean supplements that you can incorporate every day if your food is not sufficient, which in most cases is not. So I would just say research on, there are various sources of protein. There's soy, there's moong, there's brown rice, chickpeas, peas, a lot of them. But how much of it do we include every day? And how
Right,
much of
that's
it is
right.
feasible? One bowl of dal will give you only 5 grams of protein. But what we need is 0.8 to 1 gram of protein for every kg of body weight. Is that being fulfilled? It's not, right? So you really need to do your own research because no one is going to help you unless you do it yourself. So you really have to look at it from a research perspective and then decide. And there are a lot of options out there.
Thank you so much. I just have a last question if
Yeah.
time permits.
Yeah,
So
sure.
there are different opinions with respect to diet. There are people who says that you should go for intermittent fasting for have a very good health. Then there are a whole lot of study that says that you need to have food in every 2 to 3 hours to have your metabolism work. So what is your say with respect to gut, whether intermittent fasting is good to go with, or we should have something in every 2 to 3 hours?
Okay. So the first caveat that I need to establish immediately is that everybody's body is different. Okay. Something that might suit me, something that might work for me, something that might help me lose weight will not probably help you at all. Okay. The entire point on intermittent fasting, I am not the biggest believer in any kind of diet unless and until someone can assure me that Simran, I will continue this diet throughout my day, right? What happens in intermittent fasting is that you're going through a long period without eating anything, and in that period, your metabolism is going to slow down, and you're reducing the number of you're doing a something called calorie restriction as well. So if you're eating 1200 calories to be a certain weight, and once you've achieved that goal, and if you go back to eating more calories, if you're trying to go back to your normal lifestyle, your weight will also increase. So if you are losing weight with a certain number of calories, you need to ensure that you're doing this for an extended period of time. You can't come with the mentality, oh, I have my wedding in 3 months, I will do intermittent fasting for 3 months, shed all the weight, and then I will go back to my normal life. It doesn't work like that. You will gain all the weight back in no time. And not just that, you can also develop a lot of metabolic diseases because of that as well. A lot of people will come to me and tell me, I want to lose 10, 12 kgs in 1 month. I was like, you can't and you shouldn't. Such a big drop in weight will completely throw your body balance off. It is not sustainable. It is not something that you should do. Your face will become dull, your skin will lag. It is not something that you should even aspire towards, right? So you need to see what is working for your body. If not eating for 14 hours is actually good because you're putting your body in rest rather than intermittent fasting. The science that I have read, full day 24 to 48 hour fasting has shown way more benefits. 24 to 48 hour fasting actually puts your body in a state where new cells are being generated. So any place of your body that requires repair, it will repair those parts of the body if you're fasting for 24 to 48 hours as opposed to intermittent fasting. So my take on this only is that if a diet gives you all the nutrients, okay, even if you're doing a keto diet or any diet, you need to ensure that your basic body macro requirements are met. Once that is met, continue with it for as long as you can, and then only your results will be sustainable. Don't hop from one diet to another continuously and then in the end be like, oh, nothing is working for me. Of course it won't work for you. You have to sustain it for a longer duration of time.
I agree. So you're talking about fasting 28 hours, 24 hours or 48 hours, whether it's a dry fasting or it's a water fasting you're talking about.
I mean, for women especially, there is a lot of water retention in our bodies. So I'm not sure how sustainable a water fast would be. Water fast obviously has their own sets of benefits. Again, it is not for everybody. Not everyone should do it. Even if you're doing a water fast for 24 to 48 hours, you will get some insane benefits. Not just mental clarity, not just physical rejuvenation of cells, but overall it's like a reset button on your digestion process. It's making all the organs rest for a period of time and then giving it a new start. And what again becomes important in that scenario is how you break your fast, which is why breakfast every day is the most important meal. You've not eaten everything, and what you eat first actually determines how you're going to feel throughout the day, right? So yeah, that becomes very
So then, Simran, what is it that you should eat while
You should start
eating
with
your
fibers for sure
Okay,
because
yeah.
there are good bacteria in your gut. You should start with feeding them. If you immediately start with carbs or if you immediately start with your chapati, rice, all of that, it will be an instant release of sugar into your blood, right? Even poha is
Yeah,
such a common breakfast example, right? So even poha, when it's mixed with vegetables, it's a good thing. So a lot of Maharashtrians, you'll see that that's their staple breakfast, but they'll mix a bunch of vegetables, a lot of dhania patta, everything into that. That is still good. But a lot of poha that we usually eat is
yeah,
just
polished,
it's polished, correct.
polished one, yeah.
Polished and it's just carbs. It's not doing your body any good. So eating fruits, vegetables, not even fruits, I would say that's again sugar, but vegetables and probiotics that in the correct sense of terms, like idli dosa, great breakfast foods. You should eat them. So making sure that you're feeding your bacteria and then feeding yourself is
Okay,
how I would go about it.
okay.
So again,
Thank
there's
you.
a thing that good fat first. So
Yeah,
generally what I do is I start my day with 1 tablespoon of ghee.
that's
Okay.
very good.
So
Yeah.
if that you were asking that we should start with fiber. So should I like switch or
You
should I?
you can because I mean you should start with fiber. That should technically form the first layer of the gut. The first layer is your bacteria, so it should start with the fiber. But I mean, you're doing better than 90% of India if you're taking your coconut oil, which is a good fat. If you're taking that as your first thing, definitely would recommend continuing that.
I'm doing oil pulling via the
Continuing that.
coconut oil, and then I'm having A2 cow milk.
It's good. Coconut oil is actually pretty good for your metabolism. It's also there is a compound in coconut oil which causes healthy metabolism that we've also included in our product. So I'm a big proponent of coconut oil. So that's a good habit.
Simran, can you just tell our people, and I think with that, maybe at 12:35 to 40, we'll close.
Yeah.
What is to be eaten in fiber, as you said, for vegetarian people, apart
Yeah.
from idli dosa that you mentioned? Because wo banana padta hai, that's something a little tedious.
Yes. So
So,
I would say, I mean, for me, what I do is I start with, firstly, when you're waking up in the morning, the first thing that I would say is have a glass of warm water, even before you brush, okay? And why I'm saying that is because most of us, I think 99% of not just Indians, everywhere around the world, the first habit is to brush, right? But there are a lot of good bacteria in your gut throughout the night, and there are a lot of ones that you want to flush out. So I would say having a glass of warm water in the morning is great. If you can mix some form of seeds with it, pumpkin, chia, anything, as the first thing that you have in the morning, it would be great. For fiber, definitely if you're in a habit of having any form of salads or any form of fermented foods, that would be great. A lot of people make a lot of things overnight as well. I know that a lot of people have vegetables with their meal, right? With their chapati or with their rice, they will have vegetables. So that is a good way to go forward. But in even in terms of breakfast, I would say I started with my dry fruits. With my dry fruits, right? I would have almonds, I'll have walnuts. Again, that falls in the healthy fats category. So I usually have protein and healthy fats, and before I have all of that, I have some form of seeds and some form of salad. So sprouts would again be a good place to start. So that is how I would design it if I were designing my ideal breakfast. Yeah. All right, guys. I think so. I mean,
thank you.
I'd really like to thank you all for the session. And in case you all want to contact me anytime, I'll just leave my Instagram handle here. You all can directly reach out to me. Sorry, I'll just.
We have a very special guest with us, Shashi Modi ji. Thank you, Shashi Bhabi, for joining. She's a role model in herself, and she's very keenly attending the session. Apart from all of you who others have joined, I'm also thanking her vehemently. And thank you so much, Simran. This session was really valuable and very, very precious to
So
all
much
of
for
us.
having me.
Thank you.
I would like to give you a vote of thanks. Thank you so much for engaging and an informative presentation on gut health. Your deep knowledge and passion for this topic is really shone through. And we all have learned so much about the crucial role of gut in our overall health. The way you broke down complex concepts in practical and everyday tips made it very easy and understandable. Thank you so much for your time. Looking forward.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful weekend ahead.
Same to you. Bye-bye. Thank you everyone for joining.
Can you drop your Instagram handle?
Yeah.